we just saw this actually happen at the University of Alabama, where their soon-to-be offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb, left for an NFL job without having fully taken this Alabama job. Bill O'Brien takes the offensive coordinator position at Ohio State. He's on the job for 3 weeks. He gets a better offer, closer to home, family, pay increase, of course, as a head coach at Boston College. You didn't see this years ago. There are guys, this is a fairly regular thing now. Guys that get jobs a couple days after the season, leave that job, go to the next job, don't even start the next football season, or on the job for 2-3 weeks, and they're moving on to a better offer.
Yeah, part of that is the way that it's set up with, Jeff Hafley at Boston College leaves to the NFL. Grubb goes to Seattle with McDonald. But it's a scheduling thing. I think that's a huge issue in the NCAA football world, and just how it aligns with the NFL in their season, and that some of that is just coincidence. But the NCAA schedule is not good, and it does set up for players and teams to have to make decisions in untimely manners, ways that, and what I mean by that, are not beneficial to necessarily them or the people around them. Bill O'Brien was a unique situation because he thought, he didn't think the Boston College job was going to open up, and there it did. And he now gets a chance to be a head coach after having 6 years off from doing that. And I think that's his region of the country. He's from that area, generally that part of the U.S. So I think he'll do well there. But you're right. There's a different feeling. Part of it is the scheduling. Part of it is the way that college football is shaped right now, and in a large part because, like, we're seeing coaches jumping to the NFL, and I think it goes back to Hafley with that. And now you're seeing Harbaugh, grabbing a good chunk of Michigan staff, and that's shuffling things around. And some of those positions haven't been hired yet, so other teams are going to have to wait and see what goes on there.
We got Nelson Hubble here from Maize and Blue Review, breaking down Michigan's myriad of coaching changes, offense, defense, a few things left to settle.
That's the thing about what we're going to find out with Sherrone Moore is, what is he like in the hiring process? How does he go find these guys, and who does he bring in? And so far we've seen, obviously you elevate Campbell, who's a Harbaugh hire.
And there's also a dynamic that you hit on there, Nelson, in regards to really knowing your coaching staff and seeing how they fit together with their strengths. And I won't call them weaknesses, but maybe things that they haven't experienced because they've been in the NFL, or because, hey, let's face it, they're really good at what they do on the practice field and in the film room, but they haven't been the best recruiter. But we're really strong. These guys kill it. These other three guys that are position coaches kill it on the recruiting trail, and everybody brings their own skill set and backgrounds to it. And that's another fit. It's almost like an offensive line where you just don't take the 5 best guys and athletically and throw them on the field because we don't have a center. So that's a problem. You fit together the coaching staff in such a way. And again, it's not a science. There's a lot of art to it. To get it right, and then cross your fingers when that it all meshes.
Yeah, there is. And you look now that Steve Klingscale is leaving to the Chargers, you wonder initially, because he has been such a great recruiter, when Martindale gets hired, you're thinking, okay, well, that's a great balance. And then he leaves, so now Michigan's gonna have to fill those spots. We talk about defensive line, secondary coach, or DB's coach. Linebackers coach, that might be Martindale's. He might take on that title. I'm not sure as well, but we'll see there. I really think you probably want to get someone in that room who's going to recruit. But yeah, I mean, like you talked about, the fit thing. And so now Michigan is going to also have to fill those spots in. One guy at defensive line coach that we've been sort of hearing about is Greg Scruggs over at Wisconsin. So he is a young guy as well. He's 33, but he was in the NFL I think he was drafted in 2012 by the Seahawks, and he spent 4, 5, 6 years in the league, and now he's left, and he has been coaching. He got right into coaching, and Wisconsin just hired him last season in 2023 as their defensive line coach. So if Michigan is able to hire him away, you think that balance the young and the old. You get a guy who, like Scruggs, will get on the recruiting trail, and that's an underrated component to today's game is the way that coaching works right now is you have to be at least able to recruit and keep up in that area. I think you have to be younger or at least young enough to and have enough energy to get out there and do it. It's not an easy thing to do, and the lifestyle is not fun. It's 24/7, and it's at every level of college sports. It really is. And you talk to any level of coach, any type of sport, and they're always, if they're a good program, they're always talking about recruiting. It's kind of funny, but that's the reality. So if you get a guy like Scruggs, who is maybe the lead candidate right now, we'll see if that plays out to be that way. You have a chance to go out there and recruit some good players, and he isn't that far removed from playing at the collegiate or the NFL level. So he also has that connection and that bond you're able to build with players, but he also understands what it's like to be out there. Some coaches lose uh, the understanding of what it's like to be in the games, and that's why you look at a team like the Lions, I think, and the Detroit Lions in the NFL. That's a coaching staff full of former players, and that plays out pretty well, or that works out pretty well because they understand what the players are going through, and they can work with them in that area. So I do think, and Sherrone Moore, former player, right? So I do think that they're going to go out and look for guys who get it and have probably played or have been around people who've played or coached. Like Jesse Minner was around. His dad was a coach for a long time. They brought his dad on the staff for a little while. So you look for guys who either are younger and have that experience, have been around programs, teams, coaching, or a guy who has played. And I think if they get Scruggs, that'd be a great hire. So we'll see how that goes.
Nelson, we all may also underestimate this transfer portal and the amount of work that puts on these coaches, because I just keep going back to what I used to hear coaches say years ago. And when I say years ago, I mean like 3 years ago, not a long time ago, where they didn't have to worry about anybody else's teams. They didn't think about anybody else's teams. They were so laser focused on, I just know my team. I'd hear coaches get asked about other teams and they would just say, well, I'm aware, I have a relationship with that coach, so he's doing a great job, I'm sure. But they had no idea who was playing for anybody else. All they cared about was their team and their next opponent. That's all they scouted. That's all they knew. But I just have to imagine, with this transfer portal, these coaches have to watch game film on all these guys. They're just not going to a website and figuring out, okay, rivals 247 and these other people think that they're good, so we're just going to grab them. No, they are scouting them like they scout high school players. So they got to throw in the game film. They got to watch all these transfer possibilities. And then they got to go recruit them like they're high school players in a sense. Wow.
Yeah. Hiring for a general manager position within the football program to help facilitate those sorts of things. Obviously, they want to expand the recruiting department. That's been talked about. But the GM position is interesting because it handles the NIL stuff. And I think that offloads some of that concern for other coaches. That's what the job description is, at least. That's going to be part of it, is handling NIL partnerships and dealing with donors and that sort of thing. But you're right. It does bring an added component. And on top of that, you have to self recruit. It's kind of ridiculous, but you do. And you have to worry about tampering. In a program like Michigan, maybe not as much as some of the smaller schools, but the lack of fencing around this issue right now, or the lack of enforcement, at least by the NCAA, is really hurting some of the smaller programs, even just smaller ones within a conference, right? And so that's a concern. The job is getting harder, like you're talking about, and you can't just be focused on your team and the guys you're trying to bring into your team that are in high school, right? You have to focus on everything and everybody all at the same time, and it's just a lot to ask for coaches.
Nelson Hubble's here. We want to remind everyone as well, we've got a Michigan Wolverines live show every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So here's the deal, folks. We're on the national channel, That's over on the Michigan channel every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Fisherman in the chat is asking about Mike Hart.
Currently, it seems like Mike Hart is going to stay in basically the same position. Now, Harbaugh is probably currently recruiting Mike Hart to the Chargers. So you have to keep your eye on that. But it seems like his title might not even change if he does stay at Michigan. It's going to be Michigan or the Chargers. Right now, the general sense is he's staying. Who knows? It's one of those things. Steve Klingsfeld 3 days ago said, I'm going to stay. He told his players he's going to stay. And then today or yesterday it was, he said he's leaving. So, yeah.